In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
Looking for whole food supplements for your ketogenic lifestyle? Then let me introduce you to Further Food. Go to furtherfood.com and you'll see that they source the highest quality ingredients on the planet. They have collagen peptides and my favorite, the gelatin powder to make those yummy gummies. And all of it is sourced from grass-fed, pasture-raised bovine collagen from Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. This is really high-quality collagen and gelatin. There's no hormones or antibiotics, it's non-GMO, and it's the most tasteless and easiest to use on the market. If you're not using collagen and gelatin, you need to be adding this to your ketogenic lifestyle. Collagen will help you curb your carb cravings. Again, head on over to furtherfood.com, enter the coupon code JIMMY at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your order. Elevate your wellness. Further Food. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content, but you got to go follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content. If you miss the live, you get 24 hours to watch it on replay. After 24 hours, it does disappear, so be sure you go follow me over on YouTube. We put all the past episodes up over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Finally, the best of the best moments of this here show are in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. JimmyRants.com is the website, and yes, I am still here in Myrtle Beach. There's this beautiful marina. Has all these boats. In fact, one of the yachts just went out on the river. It was pretty cool. But today's Jimmy Rants, I got a goodie for you. Because if you follow my work on YouTube, then you know recently I did a parody video, an interview with Dr. John McDougall. So those of you that don't know who Dr. John McDougall is, he's a very famous starch-based diet doctor who thinks meat is the evil in our diet, and he thinks that everybody throughout all of civilization has survived and thrived on a starch-based diet. He doesn't even like calling himself vegan, but he's very much in the vegan camp with his thinking when it comes to eating starch. So anyway, in that parody video, one of the quotes that he said, and go watch it, by the way, on YouTube. Just type in Jimmy Moore, John McDougall. You will find that faux interview that I did. But I took little clips from another interview that he did do for real, and he was just crazy. And one of the statements that he kept repeating over and over again is fat and sick. So he was talking about the low carb advocates. All those low carb advocates are fat and sick, and that they were obese. Obese. That's how he would say it. And so it got my wheels turning in my head. Does being fat and obese automatically mean that you're sick? Because he's making an equivalency there that I don't think is necessarily true. I think it's very, very possible that you can be overweight or obese and not be, quote, sick. Now, I suppose there's something metabolically going on that would make you hold on to weight, but just because you have extra weight on the body does not automatically mean that you would be sick. And in fact, at one point during the interview, he said they all look like they're dying. Again, talking to about us low carb leaders. They all look like they're dying because of the way they eat and because of their obesity. So what I want to talk with you guys about is, do you think being fat and obese has an equivalency to automatically meaning that you're sick. And let's flip the script. If he believes that being fat means you're sick, does he also believe that being thin means you're automatically healthy? And of course, you know people in your life where that's simply not true. You've got thin people who are incredibly sick. In fact, I'll give you an example in my own life. Christine, my wife Christine, she was 90 pounds when I met her in 1993 was when I met her. We got married in 1995, and she was all of 95 pounds that year. And she was always naturally thin. She was a really skinny girl, never had a weight problem in her life, still has not. And yet, underneath all of that, she thought she was fat. So she went on low-fat diets to try to deal with her fatness. And it pretty much gave her autoimmune disease, and it made her gallbladder have to come out, and it led to the endometriosis that kept us from having kids, and just so many health issues that because of her thinness, she automatically thought it was healthfulness for her because of the thinness. And then you got somebody like me. I was always the fat kid. I grew up that way. I have it in my family history with every person in my family has had weight to deal with. And so I always thought because of that, that automatically meant that I was unhealthy, which is why it drives people to go do diets and get desperate to do different things in their diet and in their nutrition and in their, buying all these little gadgets and things. You've done it. You've taken Dexatrim pills. You've done the Slim Fast. We've all done that nonsense. And yet, that's not necessarily the thing that needs to be done. So if you're just joining us, you guys, I see a lot of new people have come in since I started this Jimmy Rants. We're talking about a quote that was left by Dr. John McDougall, the vegan diet guy, who did a interview recently, and he acted like a fool. So I made a parody video about it. It's on YouTube. If you an interview on YouTube if you want to go find it. But he said something in there about fat and sick, talking about the low carb advocates and even some of the vegans. He says, well, half the vegans are fat and sick, and they're representing veganism wrong because of the way they look. And so I'm asking the question, does being fat and obese automatically mean that you're sick? And I will be the first to acknowledge that I do think it means there's something underlying, that there's something that could be worked on in there, but I don't necessarily think that it means you're automatically sick. And I think this notion, and it's a cultural thing, we have been led to believe for so long that having weight on the body is an extraordinarily bad thing, and that if you simply get rid of the weight on your body, all of your health will come into line and you won't be sick. I've seen this with type 2 diabetics, by the way. They're like, you don't need to restrict your carbohydrates, type 2 diabetics. You simply need to lose some weight. And if you just lose weight, then your diabetes will get better. And what they're not telling people when they give that advice is typically it's low calorie advice. And when you go low calorie, guess what? By default, it's also low carb. And you will control some of the blood sugar and the insulin numbers when you do it that way. The problem with that is they're starving because they're not feeding their body what they need to be fed, which you guys that follow my work regularly know that's fat and protein. That is the basis of a good, healthy diet, especially for people with type 2 diabetes. So, does fat mean sick? I don't think so. Not even close. I think you can be bigger and still have extraordinary health markers. There was this guy several years back from Mexico, his name Manuel Uribe. I remember Manuel Uribe. He was on one of those TV shows where they had to cut him out of his home because he had gotten so big. I want to say he was something like, I don't know, I think it was close to 1,200 pounds at one point. And so he was a big blob of boy. And they put him on like Dr. Phil's show and some of these other kind of places. And I remember he got on Dr. Barry Sears, the guy that wrote the Zone Diet. He got on his plan, and he ended up losing pretty quickly, like within like a few months, over 100 pounds, like really, really fast once he got on this healthy eating plan. And Dr. Sears was monitoring him because he was so obese, he couldn't really do a whole lot of exercise. So he had him doing little pull-ups from his bed. So he was chained in this bed. He couldn't get out. He was just so big. And he was pulling himself up and getting a little bit of an upper body workout and doing it that way. And within, what did Dr. Sears say? Within about 6 to 8 weeks, metabolically, despite still being well over 1,000 pounds, all of his health markers were that of a healthy person. His triglycerides had come down, his insulin had come down, his blood sugar had normalized. He had just really good health markers. And yet anybody looking at Manuel Uribe in that state would have easily said, he's extraordinarily unhealthy. Now, he still had a lot of work to go, and you don't get to be 1,200 plus pounds without having some damage take place. He did eventually die several years later, but it's hard once you get that big in weight. But what about someone who's less extreme? What if someone, as a woman, is 220 pounds? What if a guy gets to, say, 350 pounds? Are those people too far gone that they're fat and then by extension of the fatness sick? I don't think so. I don't think you automatically need to put a label on that person that simply because of the weight on their body that they're automatically sick. And yet, if you talk to people, some of the vegan diet doctors like this Dr. John McDougall, he would be the first to tell you, oh yeah, fatness means sickness. He says it as much, and he's very blunt about it. Here's another curious thing about that interview, by the way. And again, if you're just joining us and you missed the parody interview that I did with Dr. John McDougall, he's the big starch-based diet, vegan diet guy. I did a parody of an interview, a real interview that he did recently, where I took little clips of what he said and his antics. Go watch it over on YouTube. It was pretty funny. But he made this declaration that your fatness means you're sick. Well, one of the things that he put in there is that half of the vegans are also fat and sick. And it made me want to scream at him. Hello? If half of the people that do the kind of diet that you advocate for, Dr. McDougall, if half of them are still dealing with weight, and of course he was very judgmental of them, saying, oh, you need to get your act in line, you need to get that fatness off your body so you'll stop being sick. It made me think, oh my goodness, he's not even seeing the forest for the trees. Because it's another reminder of the bio-individuality we all have. And that if people are doing the chosen diet that he believes is the optimal one for everyone, and they're still dealing with obesity and he thinks disease, that should tell him something. That should really open his eyes that, ooh, maybe it goes deeper than just the diet. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, I talk about it all the time. That if you're keto, if you're paleo, if you're vegan, if you're whatever, there's going to be a certain segment of the population that despite their best efforts to do said diet, they're still going to deal with other factors that can impact your weight. And then by extension of that, in his mind, Dr. McDougall's mind, impact your health. But I do think you can be very, very healthy even with weight on the body, and you can be extraordinarily unhealthy with thinness. And I think we need to constantly remind people that it's not just about the weight. And I think if we put an obsessiveness on just looking at the weight, then you miss a lot of disease. Christine, I'll go back to her again. 90 pounds when I met her, 95 when we got married. She thought for all intents and purposes that everything was peachy keen in her health because of that thinness. And I think it was a dangerous, slippery slope for someone like her, because she automatically thought she was healthy because of her thinness. Why? Because culture told her that. Culture said, oh my gosh, you're thin, look how healthy you are. And we all know thin and even athletic people that suddenly die. And they die out of nowhere because there was an underlying disease that got missed because there was no warning signs in the form of weight on the body that told that person that they had an issue going on. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am so glad that when things go on in my body, it manifests as body fat. Because I think it's a visual reminder of, okay, there's things going on in there. Maybe there's things in my lifestyle that need to be cleaned up. That could help with that. For me, I know for me, a big one is stress management, which is one reason I've kind of taken a little bit of time off here in May and June, trying to chill a little bit. And then obviously the 6 months off that I'm starting in September, all designed to try to bring some of that internal stuff under control. But for a lot of people, they don't even think about it. They go right to diet. Because whenever there's weight on the body, oh, you're not eating the right diet. And Dr. McDougall would say, well, if you've got obesity, you just need to go on the vegan diet, even though he himself admits half of the people who eat a vegan diet still deal with obesity. And in his mind, obesity leading to being sick. So the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is you're going to hear people making this equivalency between being fat and obese, and that automatically means you're going to be sick. I disagree with that. I don't even think that's even close to the truth, because the reality is you can get good metabolic health markers even with weight still on the body, and then vice versa. You can have incredibly bad health markers and be super duper thin. And some of those health markers, by the way, here are some key ones that you can look at. Because everybody always asks, what health markers should I run? I've done many podcasts and different things on this, but the basic ones are blood sugar, so like a fasting blood sugar in the morning, triglycerides, which is on your standard lipid panel, HDL cholesterol. If you want to go a little bit deeper in the lipid numbers, the cholesterol numbers, you could run this thing called an NMR lipoprofile, which will give you the small, dense LDL particles. There's also this inflammation marker called HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. My sister Beverly went to get this run and her doctor didn't know what it was. I'm like, what? It's like the most basic inflammation marker in the body. There's so many that you could run. You could go really deep and get into the full thyroid panel and all those things. But if you run those, and then of course fasting insulin, which is one that's still a little bit tricky for me. It's not super duper high, somewhere around 12, 13. Obviously, I want it to be in the single digits. And I think that one is being kept elevated because I'm eating carbohydrate restricted diet. That should not be that high. So it tells me it's beyond the diet and it's something that possibly stress is inducing, because when you're stressed, you have cortisol. Cortisol rises, raises your blood sugar, raises your insulin. So that's my theory. When I'm off for 6 months, that insulin should just come way down. So I'll be really anxious to see how that works. But those are the things that you track. Those are the things that if you still have weight on your body, please run those numbers and see where you stand. Because if your triglycerides are under 100, if your HDL is over 50, if your HSCRP is under 2, if you've got fasting insulin under 10, if you've got small dense LDL particles under 500, all of these things are clear signs of incredible metabolic health, no matter what your weight is on your body. So don't let anybody fool you into thinking that just because you have fat on the body, which I even hate the fact that an MD would say, well, you're just fat and sick to a patient, and you're obese. That's the way he says it. So he's very condescending, and it's incredibly frustrating for a patient to hear a doctor be that judgmental. If I was a patient of Dr. McDougall's and he had all of that kind of nonsense coming out of his mouth, bye-bye, you're fired. I'm gonna go see Dr. Ken Berry now. Thank you very much. That's just me, though. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here. Hello, Swan33. Hello, Suzanne and Jelly. Hello, Keto Coach Lauren. Thanks for being here, you guys. Lots of people. You guys are quiet, though. Okay, here we go. Temple Dietitian says fat doesn't mean sick, just like skinny doesn't mean healthy. Exactly. I've seen plenty of patients that are thin with the worst blood markers I've ever seen. Temple, same. I have had people write to me and go, wait a minute, I don't have any weight on my body. I've never been overweight or obese. Why are my triglycerides 479? It happens. Why is my insulin 27? Or in the case of Christine, why do I have 3 autoimmune diseases? She developed Hashimoto's, endometriosis, and psoriasis. And of course, once you get one autoimmune disease, which is related to your gut health, and this is something that's never brought up. I've never, ever heard Dr. McDougall or any other vegan diet people talk about gut health. They like to talk about calories. They like to talk about getting obesity under control, but they never want to talk about lifestyle type of issues, and they never want to talk about gut health. It's very interesting. Holly K says, that was me. Now I'm still losing and at 176 pounds and feel amazing. My numbers are now incredible. I'm 5'7", 61 years old. Holly, you go girl, because I think you are epitomizing what I'm talking about here today on this Jimmy Rants. Of a lot of people would see you're 176 now, and they would say, oh, look how unhealthy you are. You need to get that under control. And I always, too, I get this as well because of, number one, who I am. That doesn't help. But because I still have weight on the body, people are like, oh my gosh, you've gained back all the weight. No. My highest weight was 410 pounds, and I would dare say most of that weight was inflammation. And it was inflammation driven, and I wasn't caring about what I was putting in my mouth. Now I do care about what I put in my mouth. I do care about taking into account some lifestyle things, which is why I'm chilling out here in Myrtle Beach this week. I am doing all of these kind of biohacks on my body. So infrared sauna and red light therapy and meditation, and HIIT training, high intensity interval training, which I need to get back to regularly when I'm back home. All of these things add to the element of trying to get the weight under control, even while the health markers are still really, really good. This is what I keep reminding people. Your health will turn around really fast when you go keto, but you gotta be patient when it comes to the weight coming off. So, for some of us, it's just gonna be a lot harder. And for some of us, we're never going to approach the Adonis kind of look that people, oh my gosh, if I just eat the right diet, I will look like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. Don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger today, but back in the day, you know, and so people have that notion in their mind that if they just eat right, and do a little exercise, it automatically gets to that point. Your best may not be ideal. And here's another reality check. Your very best of what you can be at this point in your life, no matter where you are in your life, at this point in your life, your very best may still get you comments from people that say, you have a problem, you're fat and sick. Let's be real now, because people will judge you based on how you look now, not on how far you've come. I was 410 pounds 15 years ago, and I'm not anywhere close to 410 pounds today. Not even close. And yet, you talk to a lot of people, oh my gosh, Jimmy Moore's gained back all of his weight. Look how fat and obese and sick he is, blah, blah, blah. And I challenge those people, okay, I wish I could pull that guy back out here today to show you side by side how much more vibrant I am now than I was then. Not even close to being the same person. Not to be mean, but McDougall acts like he has issues. Val, he does have issues. I believe, and it's not mean, it's just observation. You look at that video, and again, if you joined us late, go look up. I did a parody video interview with Dr. McDougall where I put little questions on the screen, and then I took clips from a real interview he did recently. Meanwhile, this old man playing in the background, it was funny. I had to do it. It was just too funny not to. But he made some comments in there about people being fat and sick, fat and sick, fat and sick. But anyway, his antics in there were just so off the wall. It was indicative of someone whose brain is fat deprived, and that's not being ugly towards him. That's a legit fact. If all he's doing is eating starch and he's not including fat in his diet, his brain is starving. So he's probably got early onset dementia setting in, leading towards Alzheimer's. He's got some chemical imbalances, and it's all related to his diet, but you can't tell him that. He's so dug in so deep to his philosophy. Carol Ann says, my mother-in-law died in 1996 of a heart attack, and she only weighed 87 pounds. Yep, weight does not mean that all, thinness does not mean that all is going on well in your body. You can be incredibly thin like your grandmother, or excuse me, mother-in-law, and then die suddenly like that. It's sad that people, and then the vice versa, people think, oh, you're just going to keel over. In fact, yesterday on YouTube, with the video I did yesterday, somebody made a comment on that video, and it was just doing 4 or 5 different comments. I'll occasionally get a troll like this, but one of the comments that he made was, dude, you need to go get a CT heart scan, which I've talked about many times before. It's a CT scan of your chest, CAT scan, and it shows how much arterial plaque is in there. So this guy says, as obese as you are, you probably have clogged arteries and you're going to die of a heart attack tomorrow. Yes, I deal with that kind of nonsense daily, you guys. And so I obviously deleted the comment. But what this guy doesn't realize is I've had 2 heart scans in the last 10 years. And both of them came a big fat 0, came back a big fat 0. So I have no arterial plaque in my coronary arteries. And yet, because of his vision of what I look like on the outside, he perceived because of that I should be sick. And I don't know how you overcome that perception. And I know a lot of you guys, you deal with this emotionally, you deal with this on a very personal level, because you see people in your life and people in your family, and they try to say, oh my gosh, that keto's not working very well, simply because you haven't gotten all the weight off your body. Meanwhile, on the inside, everything metabolically is healing and doing really good in all those markers I talked about earlier, all of them. And yet, they're going to give this judgment to you. Can I just encourage you to just ignore that kind of chatter? Because it's just noise, and it could easily derail you. And I noticed yesterday somebody sent me a link to a longtime friend of mine who has done keto, low-carb diets for a long time. I don't want to say her name yet, but she decided to just up and leave keto and stop doing it. I haven't actually had a chance to listen to why, because I'm on vacation right now. But when I get back, I will definitely hear her out and see why she decided to walk away. But I think sometimes you get to that point in your journey where you're like, okay, nothing's happening because of the weight not coming off, and you automatically assume nothing good is happening in your health, when a lot of good things could be happening in your health. And so we psych ourselves out because of this cultural desire to be thinner and thinner and thinner. Keto Bobs, I was obese for 10 years, lost 100 pounds recently, had a CT heart scan, and I got a big fat 0. My wife has always been thin, works out every day, and she has a 30% blockage in her carotid artery. So that's, if you get this test run, they test your carotid arteries, and that's called a CIMT, carotid intima something test. So that's interesting, Bob. But not surprising, because your wife probably has allowed her thinness to say, oh, well, I'm thin, so I can go ahead and have these Cheetos and it won't bother me. I'm thin, so I can have M&Ms, blah, blah, blah. In fact, Christine, that was her thing. She was 95 pounds when we got married, and she loved Dr. Pepper, M&Ms, and Skittles. She would eat all three of those things without any worry because, oh, well, if it was bothering me, I would be gaining weight. I would be fat, and therefore that would show that I'm sick. And what she didn't realize was she didn't need to be fat to be sick. She was amply thin. In fact, she was underweight for her height. And she was still sick despite being underweight. And so, oh, you can see one of the yachts coming by. That's pretty cool, huh? So, yeah, so that's how that worked. Good morning from Long Island. Thank you, Di. Alberto says, big mistake using a physical aspect scale as a health marker. Patient, doc, I can't move half of my body. The doc says, you're skinny, you're fine, just go home. Alberto, true. And Christine had all the warning signs, despite her thinness, that things were going on negatively in her health. And yet, because of her thinness, the doc did pretty much say, just get out of here. I got obese people to deal with. And especially with obesity hitting, overweight or obesity hitting just about 3/4 of the population, that's what doctors are putting their emphasis on. And what I want them to put the emphasis on is not so much the obesity aspect, but the metabolic health markers. Can you imagine how much disease we would find if they would simply run fasting insulin, which a lot don't anymore, triglycerides, HSCRP, which a lot don't anymore? My sister Beverly said, oh, well, we won't run that. You don't have any need to run that. And I'm going, what? So HDL cholesterol, small dense LDL, all of these things can be run and see where you stand in your health. And if those numbers come back, it doesn't matter what your weight is. Now, that doesn't mean that the weight isn't an indicator that things could be going on that you could get under control. But let's not pretend like the weight alone means you're sick, like Dr. McDougall said, fat and sick. I just don't believe that. Angel's Lifestyle says, I will watch this Jimmy Rants on YouTube again. Animal sounds made me smile and relax. Yeah, there's like a bird over there that was making lots of noise. Keto Bob's This Lifestyle has the opposite effect, and I'm getting daily comments about getting too thin and be careful you don't get sick. Yeah, that's a frustrating one, Bob, because when you've been obese and then you actually do something about it and the weight comes off your body, then people, oh, you can't get too healthy. You're going to get unhealthy by getting too thin. And it's because they're so used to seeing you as the big person that now when you've radically changed the way you look, they think, yeah, it's gone the other direction. Val says, I watched a couple of his other videos and he was a lot calmer, so I think you were right. Dr. McDougall, yeah. It wasn't that long ago. It was only 7 years ago that I interviewed him on my podcast, Living La Vida Low Carb Show, and he was pretty ugly towards me, but he wasn't whacked. And I've seen the same thing, Val, some of the recent YouTube videos, like 2013, 14, he was pretty calm, even though still wackadoodle philosophy, but something has changed in the last like 2-3 years where his whole brain chemistry has just gotten off kilter. What up, Aaron? I see AD Keto in the house. Thanks for being here. LOL, yup, she would eat Friendlies almost every day, says Bob. Yeah, until the blockage, wow. Alberto says, it's ironic it's called arterial plaque, not arterial fat, and people still think it's fat. Yeah. Yeah, plaque in the arteries is not fat. It's not. Now, can your fatness, if it's brought on by a carbohydrate-based diet, lead to arterial plaque? Yes, but the reason it does is because of high inflammation, which is why I urge people constantly, go get an HSCRP. If you've never had that run or you don't know what I'm talking about, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. If your HSCRP is under 1 and you're still dealing with weight on your body and you're worried about being sick, as Dr. McDougall has described, that HSCRP will tell the tale because it's an inflammation marker. And if it's low, which is under 1 is absolutely optimally low, then you can't have disease. There's nothing bad happening in there. Now, does it mean it can't go up because you would have unresolved weight on the body, it could definitely go up. But I think it gives you peace of mind in the meantime that there's not this urgency to do something drastic in your weight loss efforts simply because of the weight on the body. It does not mean you're sick. F. Valette says, terrible doctor, because you can be skinny, fat, and in bad health. Exactly. Had low cholesterol, only found blockage because her sister is an echo tech and was practicing. Oh, Bob said his wife that had the blockage, and she had low cholesterol. And see, people don't realize this. It's not cholesterol that's the problem. It's the inflammation. So when your arteries get inflamed, then cholesterol goes there to put out the fire of the flame of the inflammation. That's what cholesterol's role is in the body. And so when they look and they see all this cholesterol, and people think it's fat, clogging the arteries, and they, oh my gosh, look at all that cholesterol. We need to cut cholesterol out of our diet. We need to cut fat out of our diet. When the reality is, what caused the inflammation that was in the arteries to begin with? It was the carbs and it was the vegetable oils. You cut the carbs, especially the refined grains and sugars and starches, out of your diet. And you also cut the vegetable oils, which is literally in every packaged food these days. I was looking the other day trying to get some nuts, and every single nut had cottonseed oil, canola oil, soybean oil. I'm going, oy, can I just get a raw nut, please? It's everywhere. And that's raising the inflammation in our bodies. And that's why the cholesterol has to go and do its job to try to save your life. And that's why someone with low cholesterol, like Bob is describing, and yet she still had blockage in her arteries, and thank God for her sister being an echo tech, that she found that. That's why that happens. It's not from the animal foods that you eat. It's not meat. It's not fat. It's not the cholesterol that you're consuming. It's the things that are exacerbating inflammation, and it's two biggies: carbohydrates and vegetable oils. Intermittent fasting is really helping me lose weight. That's awesome, F. Vallet. All right, guys, so the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is you're going to hear people like Dr. John McDougall talk about fat and sick, fat and sick, fat and sick, where there's an equivalency brought in that simply because you are fat and obese, go watch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. He literally does it that way, and he's got all those fake teeth when he does obese. Go watch it on my Jimmy Rants channel on YouTube. I posted a parody interview of a recent interview that he actually did. And you'll see just how condescending he was, and that he makes the claim that just because you're fat and obese, that it automatically means you're sick, fat and sick, fat and sick, fat and sick. And I'm saying here today, not even close. Not even close. It's not true. You can be having weight on the body and still have good, healthy markers in your metabolism, and then vice versa. You could be extraordinarily thin and be extraordinarily unhealthy in your health markers. So don't let your fatness determine what you think about your healthfulness. Lugene says, functional medicine doctor is thinking heavy metals and mold is why I'm having difficulty losing. Lugene, you're nailing kind of the bottom line undercurrent message that I'm trying to share here today. Is these doctors like Dr. McDougall think it's all about the diet, and yet there's so many X factor monkey wrenches that are thrown into the situation. For me, I know it's the stress that I need to get under control, but it could be some other things like what you described, heavy metals. I have checked for that. I used to have mercury amalgams in my teeth, got all that fixed. And then mold, as far as I know, I don't have a mold issue, but those are things that could be inhibiting your ability to lose weight, and even inhibiting your body's ability to get fully healthy. Something is keeping, for me, something is keeping my fasting insulin up, because the way I eat, 99% of the people that would eat the way that Jimmy Moore eats would have insulin easily under 5. Yet there's some other thing going on, and you guys know me well. I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to figure out what it is. And I will definitely tell you once I figure out what's going on in making that number get higher. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys here today. And that's all for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can join me live, but you got to go follow me over on Instagram and see I even come when I'm on vacation. It's early in the day, so I apologize for those of you on the West Coast of the United States that might have missed this live, but you do watch it on the replay for up to 24 hours. After 24 hours, we do put all the past episodes over on YouTube. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Finally, the best of the best moments of this here show are in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. All of these links, you guys, are at jimmyrants.com. Hey Di says, have a nice day, you rock. Thank you for that. Thank you guys for being here. Blue Jean said, I had a mycotoxin test done recently and I tested positive for several molds. Yeah, see all this like advanced testing that you can have run that most doctors have no clue about. We have the power as patients to run a lot of tests that doctors refuse to run. And if they're going to refuse to run them, other than breaking my arm and putting it back together again, why do we still see a mainstream medical doctor? I think functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, nutritional therapy practitioners, these are all the people, and even coaches, these are all the people that you go to help you when mainstream medicine has failed. Mainstream medicine should have picked up the baton and run with this as it comes to lifestyle medicine, but they haven't. They've been stuck in archaic medicine, and they're going to be left behind very, very soon. All right, guys, I'm out of here. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye.